Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 o'clock. You go on the Eastern Time Zone or any other time zone, just adjust because we love being with you every single day. That's Monday through Friday. You can find us syndicated on television. That's Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on the newscasters.com. All social media sites as well, facebook.com/DFiesel. Continue sending emails. Makes my day. You are not bothering me at all. Some of you have sent messages. Donna, I don't mean to bother you, but, and then you send a message and I always respond, you are not bothering me. Continue sending those on. It really does make my day. You can find us on all the other social media sites as well. But again, thank you so much for watching. 20 years now that the Donna's Edge started out as The Edge. And then we're living in Charlotte, North Carolina. We called it The Woman's Edge. And then came back to Alabama and it's Donna's Edge. But again, thank you so much for all of your support all these years. And it really makes my day. It really does. You know something? I cannot remember what I had for breakfast in the morning. However, when the show starts recording, you guys make it. I mean, it just makes my day. I have Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey with me. They've been with me for a number of years since we went back to Alabama. And now we're in South Carolina. And so it's always good to be with you guys. I'm just telling you, I love fair tax. There's one of my friends is running for U.S. Senate. He's in North Carolina. His name is Attorney. First name is Attorney. Don Brown. And I'm just telling you, I was interviewing him last week. He made his announcements on my show. He was running for Senate. And I just tell you, he brought up fair tax before I could. He loves fair tax.
Yeah, well, we need to start off by scolding all of your viewers, the ones that haven't gone out and done something about getting the fair tax on board, and inspiring them, because if there ever was a time for the fair tax, it's right now because of the chaos that's supposedly out there. But everything that's happening points to the fact that they're going to be forced to go with something like the fair tax, because otherwise this tariff and supposedly getting rid of all these things in the income tax is not going to work out. It'll start out. They may have a peak in funds that they bring in, but after a year or two, that's going to start tapering off when all those tariffs and everything start settling out, and they're going to say, "Wait a minute, we got all these spending things we were wanting to do, and there's no money to do it." So they're going to have to do something like the fair tax, because it's the only bill in the Congress out there that will actually bring the amounts of money in that they need without overtaxing the people that have to pay the tax.
Yeah, consumption tax always bring in more money. And we're a consuming nation, regardless. I mean, even in the hard times, we're a consuming nation. So it's
during the Depression, and I've done a study on this. So during the Depression, people were actually going to the movies more and spending money on going to the. I guess it was to get outside of what was really happening in the world. Right. So more money was spent on entertainment then, probably than even now, if you weighed the money differences and what it's worth now versus then.
Yeah.
But yeah, people were going to the movies and entertainment like crazy back then.
Well, the inspiration I was going to bring up is just think. Tomorrow would be just another beautiful spring day if the fair tax were in place. You wouldn't be worried about tomorrow. Tomorrow, just another day.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to keep receipts. That's the thing that
I hate that.
Having to search for your receipts, even if you're meticulous about filing them, it's still having to go and bring everything up. April is my dread month because we always put off filing our taxes, and so anyway. But Donna, I'm going to thank you because you're one of our biggest supporters. Absolutely. I mean,
cheerleader. I get it.
Yeah, you do. You got it right away. And that was something that doesn't. I think someone who's in business really can understand what the fair tax.
And that, my friend, is a sight to behold.
But especially small businesses are because big businesses can use taxes to keep the small businesses down, and we need more small businesses. We need them to thrive.
Yeah,
Well, I also wanted to mention this. The person who does your taxes needs to be a conservative. Okay. Yeah. And so we moved to Abbeville, South Carolina. So I go to the Abbeville Facebook page, and I posted on that Facebook page, I was looking for a tax preparer, but I was looking for a conservative. Overwhelmingly, I got this lady who was absolutely fabulous. And so, and her name is Jana Davis. And she's known all over Abbeville. Everybody loves her. And so when I walked into the office, I knew she was conservative just by the things I saw on her wall. Mm-hmm. But that's what you want. So and I said, you know what? I appreciate you being a conservative. And she smiled like crazy. And I even asked her, you remember the other tax preparer I had in Alabama? Right. Asked her what she thought about fair tax. And she was just all for it. So I asked Jana, I said, Jana, do you know anything about fair tax? You know me, I'm a walking billboard for you guys.
No, yeah.
You really?
She said, yes, I do. And I said, you're smiling. That surprises me. She said, why would that surprise me? And I said, because you're a tax preparer. Would that not be taking business away from you? I knew what she was going to say, but I wanted to just plant that in her head. And she said, are you kidding me? I could actually help businesses. Almost the same thing the other lady said in Alabama. She said, I want it.
Yeah.
All the CPAs that we talk to, like you say, that are conservative, that's the same answer. I would rather help people than to do taxes.
Yeah, we've only had one tax preparer say that he didn't like the fair tax. And it was simply because it would take business away from him. But, you know, the thing
he was just a man on the streets kind of thing. Though.
Yeah, the thing about the CPAs and the people who do taxes, they're not buggy whips. They're not going to go away.
No.
When the fair tax is enacted.
Well, actually, they might be a lot more prosperous under the fair tax than they would be under the income tax.
They wouldn't be deluged with business at the beginning of the year, and then maybe let off during the rest of the year. They would have consistent business with making other businesses profitable. So, and that's what they should be doing.
Absolutely. But I was talking to Jana about that. And Jana said, but you know something? She said, I'm the one who has to face that farmer who's been on the family farm generational. I have to be the one to tell him that he's going to have to pay so much in taxes. And I know he's worked his rear end off all year long, and he's got to pay in.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, when she signs on a dotted line, she's on the hook for that tax form being correctly prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's something that most people don't realize. They're on the hook just as much as the taxpayer is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, it is something that,
it boggles my mind.
No, the thing is, we have to educate better. Unfortunately, people are so used to the income tax and the control. The income tax is a tool and a weapon. And depending on who is president at the time, it can be very, very a very lethal weapon. We actually had, when we tried to get our 501c3, it took us almost a year, and it took us going to our representative, and then it didn't come right away.
Actually, it was 17 months.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry, it was longer than that. So yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's a long time. Even if it's 6 months, that's a long time. I mean, that's too long.
On top of that, we had to get our local representative to go to bat for us. It was into about a year, and then we talked to Mo Brooks at the time, and he sixed his hounds on him, and a couple of months later, we had our name and everything up in the light. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we were part of a class action lawsuit, and actually it cost the government money to have done that, because we actually won our lawsuit. Mm-hmm. So it just, that was during the Obama administration, Tea Party time, and Lois Lerner. So, that was the time when she was heading
charge.
up when she was penalizing all conservative.
Right.
Yeah, that was the very time I was with the Tea Party in North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina. Get a letter from the United States government telling me that I owe $10,000 as a guesstimate.
Yeah,
that was longer than the 7 years that they tell you as well. So they were really getting back on me.
the thing about the fair tax is it is not a partisan issue.
Not at all.
We all pay taxes. Now, if you want to go after millionaires and billionaires, they don't pay income tax. They have they pay capital gains tax, and they can pay it when they want to sell their stock. So they can pick and choose when they pay taxes. And that's a privilege that all Americans should have. And with the fair tax, that's what you do. You pay taxes when you can afford it.
If you want to tax the rich folks, get the fair tax passed, because there are no loopholes in the fair tax for rich folks. They get to pay the same amount of the same percentage that everybody else does on everything they buy. And when you buy a yacht or an airplane, you're going to be paying out some big bucks in tax. And
okay, I got a question for you then. Okay, so for all the Democrats who say, I think we ought to be paying the same, well, then shouldn't you be for fair tax?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's got the prebate provision in there to help the lower income folks to buy their necessities of life before they have to start paying tax.
But I'm not even looking at it that way. I think we are actually, if we're not penalized, if you're an American citizen, you're getting the prebate.
Right. I was just emphasizing the PO folks, but everybody gets that same.
Everybody gets the rebate. Nobody pays taxes.
Even Bill Gates will get that.
Well, he has to apply for it.
He'll have to apply for it.
Yeah, but
like everybody else.
Right. But no one pays taxes up to the poverty level if they apply for the prebate. And it's a very simple thing to do. It's a one page.
There's no record keeping or anything like that. It's just that once you qualify for that, an American citizen with a real live, no kidding, Social Security number and an American address, you'll get that rebate every month.
Right.
And that's the name of the game, isn't it? And I love what it does. And I keep talking about Don Brown. Okay, so Don Brown running for U.S. Senate in the state of North Carolina. Okay, so one thing he mentioned too is this encourages savings. Don has done his homework about this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the reason is, if you're getting your whole paycheck without any taxes taken out of it every month, well, then you can set aside a few more dollars every paycheck to save up some money. Whereas now, typically, you're living hand to mouth, because if you make more money, you got to pay more income tax. And I'm talking about the percentage goes up.
Yeah, and what President Trump has said, that with you don't pay taxes on overtime, you don't pay taxes on tips. Well, that's the way the fair tax works.
No taxes on Social Security if you have to.
Nobody has to pay taxes until they purchase a new good or service at the retail level, and that's it. And once you pay the tax, it's paid. You never have to pay it again. If you buy used goods, the tax has already been paid, so there's no tax coming out of your receipt. So it's just
that's never made sense to me. Okay, so. Like you buy a used car, Bobby Ledbetter with Twin City Used Cars, by the way, you better buy from Bobby. He's worth the drive wherever you're living, I promise you. So I just never thought it fair that, and it's not something he did, it's the United States government did this. Okay, so I buy a new car, then later on someone else buys that car that I had used previously, and they got to pay tax too. There's something just doesn't feel right about that to me.
Not only that, that's not the only tax they're paying. They're also paying the taxes at every level of production when that car was produced. So if if the people who drew the ore out of the earth, they pay income tax, they file taxes, they pay Social Security and Medicare, and that's added into the cost. So at every level of production, you're paying what we call the embedded taxes. With the fair tax, those embedded taxes are totally removed, and you pay taxes only at the retail level.
Well, I'm glad to know that, but I wish you hadn't told me now. That makes me even more mad. Because I'm buying something used.
Yeah, you're probably on a used, new or used car. You're paying about 28% embedded taxes.
Well, the thing about it is the all that cost is embedded in the price of everything you buy, and so you're paying those taxes now, whether you like it or not. It's just that you're paying those embedded taxes, plus you're paying an income tax, plus you're paying a sales tax.
And you're paying the corporate taxes that everybody wants to.
Everybody wants to raise.
Yes. Whenever you raise corporate taxes, what you're doing is just raising the cost of whatever it is you want to buy.
The progressives have done an excellent job on stupefying the American people as far as the income tax.
They lie to you. I mean, the people who want to
face up.
No, really?
It's not.
Tell me it's not so.
It's not just. It's some of it is it's not just one party or the other that's lying to you. They all lie to you about taxes, and some of it is inadvertent just because they don't know any better. Right. But yeah, and
well, then they don't need to be in that office if they don't know any better.
Well, I think there's only so much you can know. But
you think somebody running for any kind of office would know how to work around the taxes, or they wouldn't need to try.
Yeah, I have to say that President Trump has got a cabinet that would be the envy of if any president,
right,
if they're an honest president. So having advisors that's what we do, is pass on the information, educate people.
Well, it's almost a check to make sure you're on the right. And everybody who said, "Oh, Trump's all about himself," that's nonsense. No. If he were all about himself, he wouldn't have this wonderful group of people. I mean, they're fabulous. I mean, they're going to keep all the checks and balances. So Trump really can't do anything stupid because he's hired too many people who are into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the light shining on him from every direction all day, every day anyway. So
the good guys and the bad guys. So he's got it all. So there's no way to disguise what the news media says. I wanted to, by the way, if you would love to have this book, it's absolutely phenomenal. Now you can get all kinds of great information from the website, okay? fairtax.org, alfairtax.org. And so you can get all that information. But if you would like to win a book, you can do that by sending me an email with some questions. And I've got one right here. And this is by
We've given away a bunch of those things, haven't we, Donna?
A bunch throughout the years. Yeah. So Shannon Chappelle, and he said, I will admit, I do listen to CNN some. Okay, but he said, I know that makes sense. I'm coming to see you, Elizabeth. So don't do that. Don't do that. So Shannon, I mean, I understand you want to get a balance. That's good. Okay, so you can know what the bad guys are doing. Okay, because I even do some of that. I just don't sit and listen to it like for hours at a time. 5 minutes is all I can stand. So, but I do get that. So Shannon said it's kind of confusing from all the news organizations. He said tariffs almost sound like fair tax to him. So if you guys, he said, next time you're on the show and you're talking to the fair tax people, ask them what their analogy is. Tariffs, fair tax.
Yeah. I actually am still not quite sure I understand what President Trump is doing, although I think it's going to work.
He does, though.
Yeah. I saw a really good podcast that Victor Davis Hanson did regarding the tariffs. And Trump is playing 5D chess with these people. And it's truly amazing what he's doing. And I think as far as tariffs and the fair tax go, I guess it is a form of consumption tax. But I think it's the way Trump is using it is he's trying to get the different trade imbalanced. That's how he's using tariffs. So
why should we pay, say, 20%? Another country pays us back, does 10%. That does not balance.
Because people before us made that deal with those countries, and now all Trump's doing is saying, "Wait a minute, that was set up after the Second War to help everybody, all those countries that got bombed to oblivion, to back on their feet." And he says it's just time to get rid of that stuff and straighten that out and make it more fair for everybody. Because if you look at China, for instance, if you look at all those big new buildings and everything they built, that's our tax money's been doing. That's where all of our money's been going, is to China, and that's where those how those buildings are being built. And
but then they pay us back with cheap stuff,
right? Yeah. And all those electric cars and all that. That's right out of our pocketbook. So he's saying, "Oh, stop! It's time to make that stuff even, and get everybody on the same track so that everybody benefits from this economy. And that's all it's about. And as far as the fair tax is concerned, if you don't buy anything, well, then you don't have to pay a tax. And that's the way it ought to be, because why should I pay tax that somebody else has incurred? And that's what that's all about, is somebody else has incurred taxes. So you get the field leveled up, and we compete with each other rather than somebody having a total advantage. For instance, like if you get a car from Germany, a Mercedes, not so much a Mercedes anymore because they've got plants, and several of these companies have plants in the U.S. But originally, you get a car that's built in Germany, and it's going to cost you more here because they have a VAT on their side that they take out of the price of the car when it shows up at customs in the U.S. And so when they sell that car, it's just at whatever taxes that we're charging. But we have all those embedded taxes and everything that we bill, and we can't ship to other countries because they don't want to pay our embedded taxes. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why he's trying to get those tariffs set up, so that everybody's on a level playing field when they're competing with each other. And what that's going to do is bring everything. It's going to bring a lot of manufacturing and everything back to the U.S. It's already started, if you noticed.
The one thing that these tariffs are being used for, though, too, is bringing manufacturing back to the United States. We have totally divested ourselves of manufacturing. And, I told Chuck the other day, I said, if we ever went to war with China, we'd probably have to buy our bullets from China. And yeah, I know that
they would send them without any powder in them.
Yeah, but I know that they were selling us uniforms for a while. So, I mean, this is something we should never have gotten into this position, but now that we are here, using the tariffs to bring, actually freeing companies from taxes and when they sell in the United States, that's a big deal.
I'll have to tell you something that never made sense to me. When COVID hit, we get the China virus, I call it. Okay, but we're getting our face mask from them.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense whatsoever?
Well, they had what do they call those oxygen machines? The ventilators. We were getting those from them too.
Actually, we were better off not getting those.
We shouldn't have gotten them because they killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
But the fair tax, what it does is you don't even need to fool with the tariffs, to tell you the truth. If you just put the fair tax into place, zero corporate tax would bring business screaming back, the corporations screaming back to the U.S. Plus, corporations from other countries would want to move to the U.S. to pay 0% income tax.
When the bill was first introduced in 1999, Alan Greenspan was asked. He was it
was 2004. John Linder asked him, and after he put the bill in for I think it's about the second or third time, he says, "How long do you think it'd be before the businesses start moving, the corporations start moving back to the U.S. about 12, 18 months?" He said, "Nope, about 3 or 4.
And they would be building their corporate headquarters in the United States too. Yeah. So we would actually be doing what happened after World War II when we became a prosperous nation. So that's what, I mean, like I said, Trump is actually playing 5D chess with people. All the people that are screaming about we're having to pay more for whatever we buy.
The problem that people have that are squishy about what he's trying to do is that they are thinking in the income tax realm. They're not thinking in the I'm a businessman and here's what we need to do to make this work realm. Mm-hmm. And he's got them so flustered they don't know what the heck to do.
Well, I'm glad to know they are. I'm glad to know they're like rats jumping the ship. Yeah. I'm really proud to hear that.
Yeah, it's hard for them to mess around with us if they're befuddled.
There's an old Southern term. I'm from the South. Okay, so I remember my grandparents saying this all the time. They would say, the guilty dog barks first.
Yep. Yeah,
and it does. I know because I love animals, and I've seen them do that. and they will do that. So the guilty, and then another thing is if you haven't done anything, well, then you won't have anything to bark about. If you're not hiding from something, you're going to listen.
Yeah, it is interesting to see the progressives when they've run out of things to criticize the right about, so they're making stuff up. And the lies that she's.
Well, the big word now is chaos.
Yeah, but it's, regarding CNN, I have to say now that they have Scott Jennings there, it's really kind of interesting to see. He's one of a panel of 6, I think.
Yeah.
One conservative on the panel, but he's the only one who makes sense.
He takes them all on with no regrets.
Yeah, I don't watch CNN personally, but I do get to see clips of it, and it really is. It is something to behold.
Funny. I mean, it's amazing that people actually buy into that. It's just a bunch of nonsense.
Well,
makes no sense whatsoever.
At one time, that was the only news you could get, and I had my epiphany in the late '80s when I was reading about how the media, the mainstream media, lies to you, and I thought, no, that can't be possible because you got ABC, NBC, CBS. Surely they check each other. Well, they don't. They're all part. They all
get the same memo every morning,
right?
I mean, because it's almost verbatim. It's almost listen to one, and then some of the conservatives are getting into that too. But anyway, it's almost like, did you get today's memo, everybody? They're reading off the same thing.
Yeah.
Let me know. Make sure you understand it.
You have to understand it. Yeah.
Let's go into a commercial break. Can you believe half the show already over? Man, it flies. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Everybody hang in there, okay?
Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas, or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Good afternoon. We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth definitely matters. We have Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey with me. He's been with me for a very, very long time. We're celebrating 20 years with the Edge Talk Show, so we are just.
Donna.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. I think it's because I'm not beholden to anybody. I mean, I can say what I want to say. During the early days, I kind of was. Now, I was lucky because Tom Williams, who owned the TV station, TV 24, this is out of Alabama, he was a conservative. And so he just pretty much said, say what you got to say. Don't worry about it. But then when I moved on to Charlotte, I started getting a little bit of that. Now, Donna, talk a little bit more about gardening. Talk a little bit more about other things. And then, believe it or not, in Alabama was that way.
Yeah.
Do a little more gardening, do a little more about relationships, do a little bit more about this. But when I got to get out on my own, I got to say what I wanted to say. And I'm just telling you, it's very liberating. And I have many more viewers now than I had back in the early days. I had a lot of viewers back in the early days, but it's just, I think people are hungry. They want to hear something else. Even liberals are watching the show.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is, the earlier management was they were not risk takers, evidently.
They also had the Fairness Act, which was a big thing. I think it was in the 80s that they did away with. Yeah, and that was because when you mentioned gardening, we lived in Atlanta at the time. Used to listen to Ludlow Porch. He was a really smart guy, but all he could talk about was just stuff like gardening. It wasn't gardening. I can't remember what he talked about, but it was so boring. And so once the Fairness Act was abolished and Rush Limbaugh came on, it was like it was day and night. I would have my radio on during the day rather than just music or whatever. So that is.
Yeah, and then Neil Bortz was already on the radio, and he became famous. He started pushing the fair tax book, and he kind of blew up from there, and he finally retired, I guess, about 10 years ago. But
it's interesting learning about the fair tax from Neil Bortz. It wasn't the fair tax at that time. He just talked about a consumption tax that was that later became the fair tax. But I had it was interesting because when we in the early 80s. And I think I probably told you this before, but I was listening to a group, John Anderson, not the politician, but I think it was Jack Anderson. Jack Anderson was a columnist, and he explained about a consumption tax that would include Social Security and Medicare, would fund just the same way that the income tax and FICA do. And I thought, and it was at 23%. Was the tax. And at the time we were very young, and I said, that sounds like a lot. But then I realized that when you consider that FICA is about 16% of what you make, and then if you are in the lowest tax bracket, which is it was more than 10% at the time, you're already paying more than 23%. And with with that tax, you pay it only when you buy something. You don't pay. You don't have to keep receipts, and you don't. It's not on your wages. So it that was very interesting to me. And then to hear Neil Bortz talk about it, and then John Linder happened to be our congressman too. When actually they wrote the book, wrote this book together, and actually the bill was actually. Introduced into Congress, and I was so thrilled that we finally had that option. And unfortunately, there's a lot of pressure out there not to have it because the income tax is a controlling tax.
A lot of people make a bunch of money off the income tax.
Yes, and and then they say, well, what about deductions? You gather up your deductions, but that's such a false economy because, if you contribute to something, and I think American people are going to do that anyway. If you look at what happened in North Carolina, the people who came in and brought stuff to North Carolina did far more than FEMA, with the government organization. But if you contribute, say $10,000 to an approved charity, it has to be approved. You can't. It's not just one you choose. It's the one the government chooses for you. Then you can deduct $1,000 from your income tax. Now, if you're giving charitable donations, in order to get credit on your income tax, save the $9,000 and pay your income tax with it. It's such a false economy. And actually, to be honest, the 10% is only on the lowest tax bracket. Right. So, if you're in the 30% tax bracket, it's more egregious. So,
let me ask you guys a question. Okay, if you're looking for a new tax preparer, let me ask you if this would be a good question to find the right one, like a good conservative one who's going to be looking at it after your back and not the government's back. I mean, we want the government to be prosperous, but what I'm saying, not at the expense of our poor backs that are beat to death now. Right. Okay, so would this be a good question? And you're interviewing people to be, and by the way, you're hiring them. You need to interview them, okay? Mm-hmm. Not them interviewing you. Okay. Mm-hmm. So would this be a good question? Okay. So what are your thoughts? Okay. I'm working for XYZ company. Should I have them deduct more money from me every month or less money every month? How am I going to come out the best?
Take that money that you overpay and put it in a savings account, because if you're not writing a check on April 15th, then you put too much money. You're giving the government too much of a loan. That's you give the government an interest-free loan every time you have withholding. So
bingo. And you think you're getting all that money back? You're not. You have to break it to your precious heart, but you're not getting that back.
Yeah. Not only do you give them the money to use, you got to beg for it back, and you have to do the right things to get it back. So,
and then they're going to be looking like a fine-tooth comb to make sure. I mean, they're going to look for every reason not to pay you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up. The income tax system's been around a while. And they keep talking about how they're going to make it easier and better and all that. Well, they've been fixing the computer system every 5 years for the last 30 years, meaning that 30 years ago they said it's going to take us 5 years to get this fixed, and 5 years showed up and they were over budget. And
I've heard that enough.
And then next 5 years they were still over budget. They spent about $15 billion to fix it for the final time, and that started back about 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that, the National Taxpayer Union said, or National Taxpayer Union Foundation said that 6.5 billion hours are used to prepare and fill out tax forms every year. That's the average now. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, you think, well, that's no biggie. Well, no. If you look up how much it actually costs you to do that over $414 billion is spent just preparing those tax forms. And that's over and above the actual tax liability. So you got a tax liability, and then the $414 billion is on top of that. And the tax foundation says, wait a minute, it's even higher than that. It's $5.46 billion. And then in 2021, the Senate Finance Committee hearing our IRS committee, our IRS commissioner, Charles Reddick, noted that we have $1 trillion annual tax gap. And what does that mean? It means that there's $1 trillion a year being owed that's not being collected by the IRS because they can't get their little computer fixed. And if you look at
wait a minute. After spending all that money, they still can't get it fixed.
No. Well, the thing about it is I'll have a little story for you to show you why. But then, and the reason is there are over 80,000 pages of tax law, detailed tax code, and tax law interpretation that you're liable for, but you may not know anything about it, but you're still liable for it because it's on the books as a tax law. Mm-hmm. And 20 million or more of the illegals that reside here don't file a tax return, and they don't pay in federal income taxes.
But they do get Social Security
But they
and
do
Medicaid.
they've been getting Social Security like crazy, which is illegal.
Yeah, Elon Musk said that the computer system, I think it was Social Security. They still are using floppy disks and in CD.
The government has to have an approved system before they'll let you use it, and the approved system's always behind.
Mm-hmm.
The space shuttle went up into space with a computer that was operating that shuttle the first time that was equivalent to about a Commodore 64. Had about a gigabyte of memory on it, and it's just amazing that thing made the cut. But
okay. Do you ever watch Space Cowboys? Space Cowboys is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
I love this movie. I could watch it every night. And I remember one big thing on there. The boys all looked at each other and they said, "You got to think about this. The build of this went to the lowest builder, lowest bidder."
I told the story also about how there was and I told it wrong for so many years. There was a mailbox, one of those mailbox, etc. place. There was one address in Atlanta that received $23 million in refunds. And actually, it wasn't 23. I was wrong. It was $46 million.
If you had said $1 billion, I would have went to pieces. I mean, This is nuts.
Yes. So, but they with the computer systems they had, they couldn't catch that this was all going. That amount of money was all going to one address. Yeah, and also, if you look at the government, is the most inefficient group there is. I mean, if you consider that they spent $8 billion building 3 of those car chargers, $8 billion for 3. You know, out in California, Gavin Newsom had I can't remember how much they had set aside for the homeless. They were going to build homes for the homeless, and each one of these little tiny homes cost $100,000. So, you know, for $100,000, you can build a pretty nice abode. It doesn't, it wouldn't be. In fact, that may be about the median price of.
But if you've got Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, and a whole bunch of people who are going to be making money through that, they have to hack it up.
Right.
Well, that's the thing. When you've got that much money, there's access to it, and that's what they found. That's what Doge has found.
Doge found on I think it was that Medicare fiasco that they had. They went in and looked at that. They looked at the front page of it, and they said, "Why is the login thing sitting right there in the middle of the page? Login is usually up on the upper right. That's typical of anything you do. The login is up on the right." And they said, "Oh, you're right about that. I guess we ought to fix that." And he said, "Well, how long do you think it'll take you to do that?" And he said, "Well, it'll be 9 months and several $1 million." And they said, "Give me that thing." And within an hour, they had it fixed.
There's 2 things my husband needs to do. Okay, my husband can change something on a website like that. I mean, when I say, "Phil, I'd like to have this on my website," I don't have to worry about it. It's done like that. And also, they need to get Phil to help with Nancy Pelosi's house with the security system. Okay, so because Phil had and by the way, we know when a twig blows by the window. I mean, we just know. So, and Phil has not been trained for this. Okay,
right.
But he has our security system. You can see it on Facebook every once in a while. I put about start taping or whatever, and will you simply safe? But Phil put it together. So maybe Phil needs to work for the government and help these people because he can do it. Like we moved, so we took the security system away from Alabama and brought it here to our new house in South Carolina, like a half a day or so, maybe even if it took that long.
Well, you have to understand though that. If Doge hasn't come in there, the guy would have had to go to his boss, and he'd have to go to his boss's boss, and his boss's boss.
Changed it.
It would stay like it was.
Yeah. Now, another thing too is we can relieve the federal government of collecting that money because the states actually collect the money. It's closer in, and it's much less expensive to collect it at the state level. And actually, even when you purchase a new good or services, when you go to Walmart, when you go to the grocery store, whatever, you pay the tax. At the beginning of the month, you get a refund of that tax up to the poverty level, and it's done. It's paid. You don't have to pay the government. You don't have to go out and find somebody to figure out how much in taxes you owe, because you've already paid the tax. It's just like if you have a sales tax. You don't have to keep track of your sales tax, and it's the same way with the fair tax.
And even if you look at it from this point of view, you go out and you say, well, how many people are filling out income tax forms? And that turns out to be about 160 million people. And all those things are getting filled out and filtered into the IRS, and somebody has to look at it, and you got 162 million forms flowing into the IRS, whereas under the fair tax, you only have about 25 million retailers that are actually collecting the tax, but the funnel to the federal government is from the state. So you go from 162 million to 50 states. 162 million sets of forms flowing in every year to 50 states, sending a certain amount of money to the Fed every month, and they're audited.
And it costs money to do that. So, they have, I think, currently about 86,000. My number is somewhere in the vicinity of 80,000 people working for the IRS. They set aside money to hire 80,000 more. Well, you've got to pay salaries and pensions and Social Security, Medicare, and all of that for those people. That gets rid of about $20 billion worth of cost right there. It's probably more than that.
No, that's what it is now.
Well, it's a lot of money, and that would be that much money that the federal government doesn't have to collect from us to pay the.
And you're getting the states who are already collecting the sales tax anyway, just to add a line on their computer saying, "Oh, this is the federal tax."
Mm-hmm. Is that called efficiency? Maybe there's a word called efficiency that I think we need to establish for the U.S. government.
Well, like in the state of Alabama, you go from roughly 2.2 to 2.5 million taxpayers to roughly, I think we were told about 60,000 retailers. So you can see how you get rid of a whole bunch of problems right there. I mean, you got 60,000 flowing into the state as opposed to the 2.2 or 3 million. And the form is simple. I sold this much. Here's a tax on it. I had to credit this guy for that, and so I'm due that tax back since I had to pay that. Here it is, and so that's the tax. It's turned in, and you're done.
Yeah, businesses do inventory anyway, so it's not really. And they actually get paid to collect the tax and give it to the government. And the auditing is done at the lowest level. It's done at the business level. And instead of having to pick people out who, might have done the wrong thing, the government may want to make
it's extremely easier to enforce when you only got like in Alabama 60 or so thousand retailers compared to 2.5 million income tax filers.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's the only really commonsensical thing. Now that people keep pushing the flat tax. Well, the flat tax is just an income tax
it's flat.
Yeah, it's just flat. And that won't change. I mean, that won't change. Yeah.
Still got the IRS.
Yeah. That every year they add new rules to the income tax. So it might be flat one year. It won't be flat next year.
That's the other thing.
Let's just say I'm XYZ business company right here, and I make pennies. Okay, so you know what Trump's trying to do about that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it costs how much to manufacture a penny? If I'm a business person and I'm making pennies, am I going to do that anymore? No. I'm not going to go on a loss to make a penny. I'll go on to dimes or something. Something that's
that you lose on the dimes too, so it's all relative.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of getting rid of change, though. I really like being able to.
But does it really cost that, or is that filtering through somehow to some politicians?
Well, the metals have gone up so much that
the cost of the metals.
It's the metals.
Yeah. and that's based on the week.
Yeah, but I still want research done on that.
Yeah.
Who are they buying it from? Is there could you do a lowest bid on that? I mean, we do spaceships, we get the lowest bid on the airplanes and everything else. Okay, how about something as simple as a penny? Are there not ways that you can cut the cost? I mean, as a business person, I would be looking for ways to cut the cost.
Yeah. I don't. No,
copper is pretty much becoming a precious metal.
Yeah,
so that's the problem.
The commodities are what the price of the silver.
Gold,
Actually,
silver,
they took
copper.
silver out. I don't think there's silver in any of the coins anymore. I don't care what the coins are made of. They don't have to be made of copper. They can make them of whatever cheap metal they want, because it's not the value of
promissory anyway.
Yeah, the value of the coin is not what you're.
Well, I think you just answered it in a common sense way. You just answered my question.
They could almost. Well, I don't think I'd want plastic coins, but they wouldn't be very. No, that wouldn't work very well. But
I don't know, something made out of polymer clay or something would work. But I'm telling you, that stuff's just you can't destruct it. I mean, it's polymer clays forever.
That may be.
All those plastic bags. Okay, so this is another thing I don't get. Okay, so you want clean air, you want clean this, you want clean that, but you still manufacture plastic bags. Why can't we have paper bags?
I think that people are pushing for paper.
Yeah, they've actually done a study on that though too, and they found out that by and large it's more effective and more efficient for the economy to use the plastic. They have those bags now, so they deteriorate really quickly in landfills, and I'm
not a Dollar General one, because I'm just going to tell you, every time somebody throws one out, there sprouts another store. Phil and I were leaving, going to Alabama to see Bobby Ledbetter with Twin City used car sales, and I said, let's just count the Dollar Generals on the way. Used to, when we were kids, we were just going on a trip, we would count the doodle bugs, the cars, the bugs. And so now we count Dollar General stores.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there is their place. When we took our grandchildren on a trip, they loved to stop at Dollar General and spend all their money on all the little trinkets. Yeah. It made them happy. So, yeah.
Well, we got 5.5 minutes left in this segment, and we did have a lot of people respond to the family farm. What's going to happen to the family farm? I'm talking about inheritance tax.
Yeah, there is the inheritance tax is an income tax, and the fair tax abolishes all income taxes. So, and that is when I know they use the inheritance tax was what they used in England, in the UK, to get rid of the
aristocracy.
Thank you, aristocracy. So, that is something that we really do have to do something about that, because all of these small farms are being bought up by agribusiness, and that's not doing any of us any favors, because the stuff they put in the food and so on. If you have an independent farmer, the government really is trying to make it hard on the independent farmers, so that it's just like big pharma, big anything. The government is influenced by these mega companies. So
if you've got a small farmer in your town and you buy eggs from them, go hug their neck.
Yeah. Really.
No, they really care for you. They really do. Mm-hmm. And your health.
Yeah. So
there's no, like all the other income taxes, inheritance tax goes away.
Yeah. All income taxes are abolished. And actually at the end, after 7 years, if the 16th Amendment is not repealed, then we go back. The fair tax goes away.
We'll go back to some tax system, but it won't be the
they'll
fair
have
tax.
to come up with a new tax system, because that would be the end of the fair tax. That would give great impetus to abolish repeal the 16th Amendment and do away with income taxes forever.
Because we certainly don't want an income tax and a fair tax on top of each other.
Right. And, along with it, I'd love to do away with the Fed. I'd love to get out of NATO and get out of the UN. So,
One more thing to bring up, too, about businesses is they do not tax each other business to business. The only time that anything that's manufactured in the U.S. would be at retail when somebody buys it for their own personal use.
That's how they get rid of the embedded taxes,
The
because
embedded
no
taxes
taxes
go away as a result of
yeah,
that.
no tax is collected until you purchase something at retail or purchase a service.
I'm for that.
Yeah.
Because we know that based on the GDP of many years prior to this, that about 23% pays the taxes that the government requires. So that's the number.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. Just sell me something, and then at retail, I'll give you 23% of it, and I'm done with you.
It's the largest transfer of liberty from the government to the people, freedom from the government to the people.
That's why I'm wondering if Trump's.
Yeah.
That's something seems, because he seems to be following some steps here. I don't know if it's his own version of it or what, but anyway, there seems to be some kind of steps that are followed there.
Yeah.
I wanted to say this to my North Carolina friends. We lived there for 9 years. You need to look up Don Brown. Okay, he's an attorney. He lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. He cares for you. And I'm doing this. It's not time for him. I mean, he's just made his announcement on my show. Okay, so he is running for U.S. Senate. If you've done any kind of research for fair tax, you're going to love it, and you'll vote for him if you are in that particular area. Okay, Don Brown cares about the American public. He promotes Mike Huckabee like crazy. As a matter of fact, one of his events he had last week, he actually was viewed the video of Mike Huckabee talking about fair tax. Yeah. And I'm just telling you, if you have, I don't know the fair tax people in North Carolina. I'm just saying, if you're in North Carolina and you have anything to do with fair tax, you need to be jumping on his bandwagon. Okay, because he's actually on the show. I did not bring up fair tax. He did.
Yeah, we've talked to Don, and the man knows the fair tax.
One of the things in North Carolina is specifically because the tax is collected at the state level and then forwarded to the federal government. That actually implies states' rights, because FEMA didn't do its job in North Carolina at all. And what the state could do is say, well, the federal government can't handle this problem, so we will, and deduct the amount of money that they forward to the federal government to cover the people of North Carolina. So actually, the state could have taken over the job that FEMA was supposed to do and didn't do.
Now just get rid of FEMA and be done with it.
Well, I think the plan is to get rid of FEMA, which would be a very good
I'm
idea.
glad to hear that. Absolutely. Guys, we're going to have to call it a day. Man, an hour flies by when y'all are on the show. It's always so much fun. But now, going ahead and go to the websites, by the way, everybody. And, I mean, it's all there. Go to YouTube, and just like Don Brown is doing, he's just showing that YouTube of Mike Huckabee all over the place. And you'll get a lot of insight, a lot of information about that as well. But again, thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Thanks, Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey, for everything you are doing. I'm a huge cheerleader for you.
And we appreciate you.
Oh, well, I'm always going to be, because I really, really believe in that. And I think it's going to be, like you guys have always said, that's going to help us Americans. I mean, it really is. That's the best thing that could happen to us. Absolutely.
And your listeners could do us a favor by every time they talk to or have access to a politician, ask them about the fair tax. Even the dog catcher, ask all of them about the fair tax, and see. Make it known that that's what you're interested in. And
call the people who are in your government in your state. Or
all your representatives.
County. Even I would hound the daylights out of your mayor. I mean, everybody, the city council, it all starts at the bottom. If you get the city council, the mayor, and all that, it's going to blossom. So you hire people who are in your government, okay? You do it. You're the one who hires them. It's not the other way around. They've got to please you, okay? You're the employer, they're the employee. Absolutely. Look at it that way. Okay, guys, thank you again so much for watching. Continue sending emails, Donna@donnasedge.com, Donna@donnasedge.com. See you guys later.